everyone, Raptor Spank here, and today we have Metacheck April 13th. This is a show where I talk about the meta, I give an update on my deck guide from last week, and just talk about a couple of decks I find interesting. We'll also talk very briefly about the patch notes, really not much to talk about, so I guess I'll jump straight into that and just get that out of the way. There's going to be an event going on, log in every day, you get some free stuff. They're a bit over the top for me, a little busier than I would like, but I mean, free stuff's free stuff, it's awesome, and the card back actually does look kind of cool, so I'll probably use that in at least some decks. But yeah, just that's pretty much the only thing. Some other small things like effects changes on certain keywords, card types, that sort of thing, and then some bug fixes, but nothing major. So neat little patch, free stuff coming, that's pretty sweet. Year for Legends of Runeterra since their official release. I mean, beta was back in January, I think. So, I mean, I've been playing the game for a little over a year, but their official birthday, quote unquote. So that'll be fun. Deck update on Garen Taric from last week. Got a decent number of games in. Played 7 games over the weekend of the deck. Will I play more? No. I went 1-6. The deck is actually pretty trash, is what I've learned. I think it did so well out of the gates because the decks we went against were all even or better matchups, I would say. Only 1 game sample size for Kindred Nasus makes it a little bit hard to say, but essentially we went 1-6, 14% win rate. Our one and only win is against Lucian Azir. A lot of that when we went out the gate, so we're actually 75% win rate in that matchup with a 3-1 record, and I do think it's actually super favored because we have so much life gain, we have combat tricks, and we can actually kill them semi-quickly, so that's really nice. But we lost to Shen Jarvan, so that matchup's actually a 50% now, so that was like an even matchup. And then otherwise just got absolutely roundhouse slammed by a bunch of different decks, some of which are really bad. I mean, we're talking like Noxus Shadow Isles champion list. We're talking like LeBlanc Karma running the Legion Marauder spell. Deep Monsters. That one's a bad matchup. That one's like strictly a bad matchup. Deep Monsters a terrible deck, but it does win this matchup specifically very well because their late game is so much better than us, and we can't really gas pedal them. And admittedly, a lot of bad luck on the part of the deck. I don't think in a single one of those 7 games I got a turn 2 Mountain Goat. Maybe one of them out of the 7. So RNG was really against us. Not to mention, those were the worst star shapings I've ever seen in Legends of Runeterra, period. I probably cast it in at least 4 to 5 out of those 7 games, and I never saw Great Beyond. Not even once. I saw the Scourge twice, including at least once, and in fact probably both times it was like the Scourge and a bunch of cards that require Behold, so they were actually uncastable. I had a star shaping, I think, that gave me the obliterate things with 3 power or less, and obliterate 2 targets, and Cosmic Inspirations in 1 star shaping, none of which were castable. So admittedly, those losses could be chalked up a fair bit to RNG, but more or less the fact that they were so bad just has me really against playing more of this deck. So I probably will not. I even played a different aggro deck just to reset after that because of just how awful the deck performed. Now, 3 of those games were running 2 of Cithri of the Bold, so 1 less star shaping and no Mentor. The one win I had was with Mentor, which was pretty sweet, but so 3 of those games were on kind of a different build of it, but still obviously 1-3 on the normal build of the deck, so by no means does that feel good. The Cithria version does feel worse, so I did switch back to the normal version and kept staying with it. And if I did play it again in the future, I would probably play the normal version, but since we're sitting around a 46% win rate, I think it's a waste of my time to keep playing the deck. If the meta changes, there's certain things that it could be good against. It's good against other aggro decks from the look of it, but it's going to be fairly bad against other mid-range decks because most mid-range decks have a better late game than it does, and that's kind of the problem. If you can get the Golden Aegis combo and your opponent hasn't developed much of a board, which is kind of what we saw with like the Shen Jarvan game we won, then things go well, but it's pretty inconsistent for that to be a good payoff for us. So all in all, don't really plan to play the deck any further. I think it is a really neat deck. I think it is a really fun deck to play in normals. I just don't think it's worth my time in ranked to invest more in it. But again, who knows? I only went 1 and 3 on the normal list, so maybe it was just a bad day because that was all in one sitting, whereas the other 3 losses were on a different night playing the other variant. So. And we did lose to Shenjarvin with the other variant, so maybe it's possible that the normal build is a little bit better set for that, and I mean, Star Shaping is good into that matchup, so it's possible, but generally speaking, I'm going to be looking at other decks, might be looking back into aggro, because pretty much the best performing decks right now are all aggro, which I guess is a great just segue into general thoughts on the meta. It's very aggro heavy. I played a lot of really weird aggro decks, like the championless one I mentioned. Other than that, lots of Lucian Azir. Then there's a handful of kind of weird Noxus aggro decks. Ezreal Draven's kind of making a comeback too, I've heard, which that's pretty exciting. I did run into it once, but that was with a different deck, and very narrowly won that game, so that was pretty sweet. But just in general, it's a pretty aggro-heavy meta. There's some decent mid-range decks that can hold up well against aggro, so we are seeing that a little bit as well. So kind of good if you like aggro and mid-range. Combo decks are kind of falling by the wayside a bit, and also control decks just don't exist at all, so that's a little bit sad for the general state of the meta. It's still better than it was with the Felios and all that, but it's it's definitely time to be playing aggro decks, so I should probably be doing that myself because those do tend to be my comfort zone, and now is a great time to be playing them, so that's what I would recommend. Find an aggro deck you like, grind that a bunch, because it's probably going to do fairly well for you. As for the decks we're going to talk about today, pretty simple standard ones. Now, I covered a deck very similar to this in the past in a video called Flash of Brilliance, so if you want to see something very similar and kind of get a short guide on that specific deck, you can look it up there. But essentially, it's Spider Aggro. This deck has been around since forever, since the dawn of time. It's become much more fearsome aggro than Spider Aggro, although this variant doesn't have Misrace or anything like that in it, and I think the deck guide I did probably was running Misrace, but essentially, play a bunch of fearsomes, do a bunch of damage to your opponent really, really quickly, close out the game with things like Doom Beast and Decimate, essentially. Against other aggro decks, we do have that Doom Beast, which is really, really strong for gaining us life back up while draining our opponent. That can really break the aggro mirror matchup, break the symmetry fairly well, so that's really, really strong. But just in general, it's a lot of really powerful fearsome threats, so you're basically going to gas pedal every matchup you come across. Against mid-range, obviously the spells to close out or things like Demolitionist are going to be good. Arachnoid Sentry is going to be good in those matchups too. And we do have this nice little Spider Core too with Frenzied Skitterer just boosting the damage out of things. And Skitterers are really good into mid-range decks too, because oftentimes they have a lot of stuff there like right at 3 power. So by playing Skitterer, you drop them down below that, and then you can swing with your Fearsomes for free and deal a ton of damage. So really, really good. Just an all-around, fairly well-rounded aggro deck that's pretty fun and pretty different from what we've been seeing lately and what everyone's been playing a lot lately. Then on from there, we're actually going to talk about another mid-range deck, because I've seen this a few times. Now, I have complained a lot when I see this, because I haven't seen anyone play the variant I'm going to show you, but that is LeBlanc Ashe Frostbite mid-range. So it's essentially the Frostbite mid-range deck that's been around for forever, but now people are running LeBlanc, which I actually think is very solid, but I think the ones that are running 3 LeBlancs, 3 Ashe are just stupid. Not to be mean or anything, it's just Sejuani is such a great finisher for the deck that I think you just want the one of, no matter what. Now, we don't have ways to tutor it out in this deck, in the list I'm running. You could run Babbling Bjerg, and then it's even better, because they can find your Sejuanis fairly easily, especially if you go down Hearthguards. But just in general, lots of 5 powers for turbo leveling LeBlanc, and then a lot of things that benefit off it, like Whispered Words, Reckoning, just a lot of great value. So it's just a super value-oriented, kind of aggressive mid-rangey deck. The thing is, we have a lot of really powerful threats that have 5 power, and some of them are kind of hard to remove, like the Yeti and like Avaros and Hearthguard. So that makes it very hard for control decks to deal with our threats. So we can actually run them down fairly quickly, and things like Trifarian Assessor and Whispered Words help to just keep our hand full. So this is probably the variant I would run if I was playing it more at the moment. With the one of Sejuani that I mentioned, I might try to get some Babbling Bjergs in there, so I might mess with the numbers a little bit myself, go down like a Hearthguard or something like that, but generally speaking, I think this is the best, most well-rounded reason. I think running a one of 3 Sisters is better than a one of Flash Freeze, because 3 Sisters can get you Flash Freeze, as well as a number of other really powerful spells, so 3 Sisters does seem really, really strong in the deck, but all around, I did a deck guide about this. I'll include the link up above, but essentially it's the same deck. You're just running LeBlanc now because you can level her up very quickly, and she's also a very well-statted, very safe attacking 5-cost unit that comes down early, so she's definitely a great addition to the deck. The deck before didn't always run 6 champions, so LeBlanc's kind of changed that dynamic a fair bit, so I do recommend it, even though she's kind of easy to kill, but you can use things like Troll Chant to keep her alive fairly well, so all in all, it's a new take on the deck that's really, really neat and probably stronger than it's ever been before, so highly recommend giving it a try. And those are the decks for this week, so if you're interested in either one of them, there's deck links in the description below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe for more Legends of Runeterra content.